Nice girls are fake. Nice girls are fake. Those words came out of Beverly Engel's book, Nice Girl Syndrome, that I read about 5 or 6 years ago, and it completely changed my life. How to stop being a people pleaser. Let's get straight into this. So when I read those words, I was really taken back. I was really offended. I was like, what's she talking about? What? Like, what you mean nice girls are fake? How am I being fake? But when that lady started to break that down, that actually inspired change. So the first thing I want to do when we get into this people pleasing, I want you to really assess your need to say yes all the time. Assess your yes. Why do you always need to say yes? When Beverly Engel broke it down, she said that nice girls are operating out of ego. And because it's not as abrasive or manipulative or conniving, outwardly conniving as most people who we deem as like manipulative evil forces, it's often overlooked. So basically, a nice girl is saying yes and doing all these things because she wants people to like her. That is manipulation. And when I tell you, I felt called out. I felt like she just lifted me up and put me for the whole world to see, because I was like, wow, this is true. You know how when you read something or you come across something it hasn't crossed your mind consciously, but when you read it, it just hits you in the chest. Like, that is how I felt. So the first thing, I want you to assess your yes. Why do you take on every demand and task? Why do you feel like you need to do what you need to do all the time? Why do you feel like you need to just meet everybody else's expectations and not yours? I'll tell you what my reason was. So the reason why I manipulated people and became a people pleaser was because, number one, I felt guilty for being a bully at one point, and I felt like I deserved mistreatment because I was a bully at one point. This is like a real deeper reason. But then on top of that, what it was I was trying to gain acceptance and approval. I did not feel safe growing up. I did not feel like I was society's ideal of beauty. So I kind of found safety and acceptance through other people. That's what made me feel good, and just, pleasing other people, being there for other people, even at the expense of myself. It gave me a sense of purpose and direction. And it actually, yes, it ended up driving me right off a ditch, because you can't depend on people like that too much. Like, we all are interdependent, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying, when we put all of our eggs in one person, not even one basket, one person, them eggs gonna drop and crack. Okay, so let's just not do that. The next thing I want to get into, right, when it comes to, how to stop people pleasing, is slowly start distancing yourself. So this is one thing I started to do. I got into a real big, deep depression. And one thing that I did was I started to isolate. Now, this was unintentional. It was like I just did it because I wasn't in a space. But during this process, it really allowed me to sit with myself and not be so influenced by what everybody is saying. Because the people pleaser is literally like a puppet. So I had to take some time to start listening to my own voice. And I started to realize you, half of this stuff you in right now, these relationships, all this stuff, you don't even really approve of this. You just in it because that's what they doing. That's what they saying. It's not even what you want. Half of this stuff, it was like everything that I saw that I was in and that I was tolerating, it was literally it wasn't stuff that I accepted. And that's what I said, I learned that in isolation. So take some time out, spend some more time with yourself, get acquainted with yourself and your truth. Because one thing I realized, I heard so many truths, but they weren't mine. So when I started to get some distance, I really started to sit with myself. I want to talk about too, when I got into this depression, I started getting off social media, and I started realizing it all started when I said I didn't want to be popular anymore. I was transitioning from high school to college, and I literally remember saying I don't want to be popular anymore. I was popular in high school, but for the wrong reasons. I was popular. I was putting on this mask and kind of just being this real cool, laid back person who nobody could ever see why somebody would have a problem with. But that wasn't true. That wasn't really true to who I was. I am a cool person, don't get me wrong, but I had a sassy side too. I got a spicy side too. I don't agree with everything. I'm not compliant. I don't get me wrong, I know how to submit and allow to be led in certain circumstances, but I'm just not somebody that could be controlled and moved and manipulated and just allowed to do anything too. That's why I felt so tired, and that's why I felt so hurt, and that's why I felt so drained and so suppressed in my relationships, because it really wasn't truthfully me. That's how you know you ain't really no G people pleaser, because You feel suppressed and drained and hurt because you're betraying yourself. One of the worst types of betrayals is betraying yourself. As my uncle says, the worst thing you could do is lie to yourself. So I had to get real with myself on that. Like, about what was going on inside of me. I want to talk about, so I want to throw in here. It's important that with popularity, because you can have good popularity, which is, I feel like what I have now, which I'm really being authentically myself. I have a brand, Hop on Wahago, that is helping people, and it's really me. You go through my videos, you see so much personality, you see so many different sides of me, and I'm just being authentically myself. But shout out to content creation, which has given me that ability. But see, when you're popular for the right reasons, you're being true to yourself. I was not popular for the right reasons. And I felt the reason why I said I didn't want to be popular anymore, because I felt like I was obtaining this false persona and I was just ready to let it go. So when I said I didn't want to be popular anymore, that popularity is what fueled my self-esteem. That people pleasing is what fueled my self-esteem. So when I let it go, I got into a deep depression, because now when you take something out, you need something to replace it. So it's like, what you going to do? We need something here. What you going to use next? So that's where that depression started. And that was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me, ever. Okay, that was one of the best things that could have ever happened. The next thing when it comes to getting out of people pleasing, ease into your nose. So once you do the isolation, once you assess your whys, that was enough to motivate me to start saying no to certain circumstances. So let's say let's start small. Somebody asks you to go to the mall, you don't feel like going. Say, hey, I don't feel like going today. Can we please reschedule for another time? And see what they say. Just start small. And then let me go to a bigger example. In my relationships, I looked around at my friendships and my relationships, and I was just like, this is not it. This is not it. 1, 2, 3, not it. Like, this is not it. Like, I'm in all these relationships that are not good for me. And at the time, I was like, I gotta let this stuff go. So I unfollowed, I ghosted, which I wouldn't recommend. But like I said, going from people pleaser to trying to break free from that. So you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. I hated confrontation. I hated disappointed people. So although I wouldn't recommend it now, and while I am definitely a person that would tell you today, I wasn't that person back then. So that is why I did stuff like that. But I had to clean out my life, man. I had to clean out my life. And thankfully, the people that I cleaned out didn't, rebuttal or say anything. They kind of just went their own way. So I just started to realize that, listen, these people were in my life because they're reflecting my belief of not being good enough, not being loved for me, not being chosen. And I had to take full responsibility for that. As a people pleaser, I used to always go off like, oh, I'm sick of people. I'm sick of being nice. I'm tired of being nice. I'm about to start being mean. And I couldn't do that because that generally wasn't me. I'm not mean spirited, but I could get there now. Like, I got another side, but I'm not mean spirited, and it was just like I felt stuck. The reason I would never succumb to being mean is because being nice was benefiting me, as Beverly Engel talked about that manipulation. I was getting something in return. So me being nice and doing what everybody wanted me to do, what I was getting in return was actually popularity, favor, compliments. These things just fuel my self-esteem, fuel my self-esteem, fuel my self-esteem. So I had to really not care about that anymore. And when I made a decision to just cut everybody off, and just let go, I really stepped into a power. And, I started to feel more comfortable with myself. So sometimes to start with the little leaps and then do the big leap. Just take your time. Another thing that's very important that I would suggest is to read some books on it. Anything that you're struggling with, you want to get acquainted with. So that may be Facebook groups, books. I definitely recommend Beverly Engel's book, Nice Girl Syndrome. That is a very, very good book. Even therapy as well. I got into therapy. I started reading more. I started going out in nature more. I started really trying to learn who I was and not who I was under the influence and opinions of other people. The next thing I want to encourage is to feel and process your emotions, because as people pleasers, since you take on things that you really wouldn't want to do, you really don't want to say, you really don't want to feel, you are disconnected from yourself. When you choose to people please in a negative context, you are disconnected from yourself. So take some time and really be honest. When the offense is made, how do you really feel? Not how somebody's telling you you feel, not how you want to feel. How do you really feel about it? When your friend showed off in front of her other friend to you, how did you really feel? When your friend didn't come to your birthday party, how did you really feel? When your friend stole from you, how did you really feel? When your friend finessed you, how did you really feel? See, often as people please, we don't realize because we take on what people want us to feel and what we want to feel, so we don't get in the way of our relationships and our compliments and praise, that we completely forget that we are literally separating from ourselves and our truth and our emotions. So you're not you. When you're a people pleaser, you're not you. You're a false persona. So now you gotta slash that. And I'm telling you, that is work. So start there too. Start figuring out and journaling out. I journal all the time. It's so crazy how my journal is here right now. But I journal all the time. Get real with yourself and ask yourself, yo, how do I really feel about this? How do I really feel about this? And be real. Be real, please. Next thing, start letting go of relationships that's literally making you sick. You got to really ask yourself, am I in this relationship out of fear, obligation, or I'm in this relationship because I want to be here? Why did the relationship start? How did it start? Did it start because you wanted to be in it, or did it start because they wanted to be in it? Were you really feeling them, or did you just like how they were feeling you? Like, these are questions I had to start asking myself because I had to start really building my own identity. And I'm in the process of doing it. I'm telling you right now, it's not perfect. But one thing I am so proud of, I am not nobody that stays silent anymore. I speak up for myself now. And I say what needs to be said. And I've grown tremendously. And now I'm going to give you guys tips. I also have a video on how to speak up for yourself that you can check out too. But I'm going to give you guys my little formula for having difficult conversations, because I suggested that you let go of bonds that are making you sick. And I suggested to speak up for yourself more, right? So I'm going to just give you guys a little formula that I use. Number one, start with what you like about the person. Wait, hold on. Before I even get into that. Number one, if you want to talk to somebody, whether you want to end a relationship or bring up something that's bothering you, pick a time to have the conversation. It could just be you and that person in a quiet place. Make sure you're not yelling, screaming, cursing, throwing stuff. And just, now y'all pick the time, y'all pick the place. And then now, what you can do, number one, tell them what you like about them. And I really love how you stand up for yourself and stand for what is right. But lately I've been feeling a little, friction in our relationship. I just kind of don't like how you don't show up at my birthday parties, or you don't reach out as much as I would like you to. It kind of feels like I'm always the one doing all of the work. So I just want to know, like, I'm willing to move forward and progress in this and make our relationship better if you are. But I would like to see you more active and present in our relationship, because it kind of feels like it's one-sided, and it kind of feels like you're here physically but not mentally. Explain what you would like to see. Address the problem and explain what you would like to see. Give the person a chance to respond. Now, this is what a lot of people fear. Now, this is the thing. When you address it like that, it is very less likely that you're going to deal with somebody who will fly off the handles, but it will happen sometimes as well. So let's not act like it won't. What's very important is that you got it out. I want you to celebrate that in the process. When you took the chance to say what you really felt and you got it out for that person to hear, that is such a huge accomplishment. Now it's about listening to what they have to say, as Tony Gaskins seeks to understand so you can be understood. Hear them out. Hear their feedback. Use your discernment. If they're willing to make it work, and if they start making the changes to better the relationship, okay, cool. If they are, kind of being very defensive and flying off the handles, that is your answer. You decide what you want to do next, okay? But I would definitely recommend you if a relationship is somewhere where you should stay or if you should go. You do know. If you're searching up on Google all the time, should I leave him? Should I leave her? Should I end a friendship? That's a sign, okay? And on my last point, guys, write out your standards and boundaries. Tony Gaskins taught me this. This also comes with getting acquainted with yourself. Do you know your standards and your boundaries? Do you know your values? Like, you got to start really identifying what ticks you off. Like, what is something you cannot tolerate? What is something you can tolerate? What is something that really grinds your gears? These are things you have to start getting acquainted with, because if not, you'll go into relationships mindlessly. Okay, guys, so I hope this helped. This is my little formula on how to stop being a people pleaser. I would love to hear your tips down in the comments below. And I'm proud of all of you who are on a journey to detaching from the people pleasing, or if you already detached from it and are now speaking and being your authentic self. That means a lot. And I would also love to hear some of your tips on detaching from people pleasing, or if you're struggling with anything right now that I would love to help you with. Thank you so much, guys. I'm signing out. Peace.